today I'll be doing a tier list for all of the heroes in Twist. And I thought about it a lot, you know, how I should kind of judge the decks and judge the heroes. Because on one hand, I thought about doing a tier list based on balance, right? You know, what are the strongest decks? But the problem is that Blizzard is supposedly going to be doing like active balance changes, right? Twice already, they've adjusted health values for heroes with, either adjusting them higher or lower based on their win rates. And apparently, without an actual patch, that's all they can really do. You know, they can hot fix health values, but they can't make any kind of like deck changes or, you know, passive changes or hero power changes. But still, I think the fact that they've adjusted health values twice already bodes well for the future of the format, and we'll have to see this week. I think hopefully there's a patch this week and they actually make some changes, because some of the decks are really lacking. You know, some of the decks could use some adjustments, and that's why I don't really want to rate them on balance, because I think if I rate them all based on how good the decks are, that could literally change tomorrow, or it could change next week, and it could change again in a couple weeks, right? So I feel like it's just going to be in constant flux. Hopefully, hopefully if Blizzard actually follows through and does what they've said they're going to do, hopefully they actively balance Twist. And if they do, then yeah, I think this tier list could be out of date within a week or something. So I think instead I'm going to rate them just based on how fun and interesting the decks are. I think these pictures might be a little... Oh yeah, these pictures are out of date. Cthulhu is listed as 35 health here. I think Cthulhu is up to 50 or 60 now. And then Arfus, I think Arfus was brought down to 25 and is now 20, I think. Something like that. But like I said, you know, they are, at least so far, they are actively tweaking the format, which is good. Because Blizzard has a history of disappointing, unfortunately. And they said they were going to make changes to the format. Oh, Cthulhu's 80 now. Holy shit. So I think it went 35 to 50 or to 60, and now it's 80. But damn, that's crazy. Also, this UI is just terrible. You got this stuff clipping over here. I stopped hovering over the hero power, and it's still there. You can see a second one pops up. Whoever did the QA on this UI, man, you need a timeout. Yeah, what's Illidan again? I can't even see. Small indie company, man. So like I said, today I'll be doing a tier list for all of the heroes currently in the Twist season. And just so it's clear, I will be rating them based on how fun and interesting they are, not on how strong they are. So I'm just going to go in alphabetical order. So first one we have is Alakir, which, ignore the health value. This is out of date, but Alakir's hero power is 1 mana, gives a minion Divine Shield and Taunt, and its passive is Elemental Evocation. After you play a legendary elemental, call upon the power of an element. The options, it's the Kalamos options. So it's like deal 6 damage to the opponent, summon 2/2/3 taunts, deal 2 or 3 damage to the enemy's board, and restore health to yourself. I forget how much. When I first read his powers and his decks, it seemed kind of boring. I don't know why. I think is maybe because it seemed like this wasn't going to trigger a lot, because there's only 10 legendary elementals in the deck, I believe. But when I played it, it was pretty fun. It was fun triggering this effect because it's so versatile, right? You could use it to, you know, push face damage, or you could heal or summon the taunts. Like, I don't think this was like the most fun deck I played, but it was definitely... It wasn't bad, I didn't think. And once again, we're not rating these based on how good the deck is. We're rating them based on how interesting the deck and the playstyle is, or how like unique it is. I feel like just B off the top of my head. It wasn't like amazing, but it wasn't bad. I feel like it kind of sets a good baseline. Like I said, this seemed very bad just reading it, but actually in practice, it worked out pretty good and it was pretty fun. The hero power is obviously very, very strong for 1 mana. I will say there's definitely room for improvement in the deck, which it goes for most of the decks. You know, that is a problem. I don't think the problem with Twist is that some of the heroes are too strong. I think the problem is that too many of them are too weak. And a lot of it boils down to the fact that most of the decks are Highlander decks. I think all but 2 of the decks. So there's 19 currently, right? And I'm pretty sure 17 of them are Highlander decks. And in those decks, there's just so many random shitty cards. I understand there being Highlander decks, but I feel like it should be more like 50-50. It shouldn't just be every deck is Highlander and they have shitty cards in them just to make them a bit less powerful. Actually, this reminds me. So when I was looking into all the information for the different heroes to have for the stream, the first thing I checked was the Hearthstone website, right? Like the official resources. And I found an article that talked about the twist season, right? Basically saying how it would work. And there was a button here that said, click here to see a list of what each hero's health, hero power, passive effect, and deck list will look like it for the twist season. I was like, perfect. This is exactly what I want for the tier list, right? All of that information just in one place. And you want to see what it looks like? It's just some shitty PDF that someone threw together. Like, I thought it would be a cool done up like infographic with all of the heroes and their effects and stuff like that. And it's literally just a shitty PDF that was like thrown together in Word. So that caught me off guard. How are you going to link to this in the official article? It just looks so lazy. The next deck is Archvillain Refaam, though. And as you can see, the wiki is not agreeing with me right now. But basically, his deck is full of legendaries. So it's a full legendary deck. The passive says your legendary cards cost 1 less. And his hero power is 1 mana to discover a spell from your opponent's class that costs 3 or less. Okay, same thing happens when I open the wiki. Okay, so it's not me. So the wiki just decided to shit itself when I needed it. That's all. Refaam is fun just because it's all legendaries. Each one has a really cool ability. How can that not be fun? Yeah, I agree. Just having a full deck of legendaries, like, that's cool, right? Like, that's like every player's dream, right? To just be able to craft a full legendary deck. And in that sense, it's very fun. And the hero power is nice because it balances it out, right? Because the whole deck, outside of a couple things, is minions. So the hero power offsets that and lets you discover some spells. Yeah, I think in terms of like a power fantasy, I think it was an A. Having a full legendary deck, that's like everyone's dream, right? To have all the legendaries and just play a full legendary deck. So I think in that sense, it was fun. Considering how shitty some of the decks are, I feel like this deck could have been a lot worse. I had fun with it. And like I said, in terms of like how fun and unique and like the power fantasy of it is, I think it fits as an A. Oh, hey, you're an admin in the wiki. If there's something bugged, it might just be a temporary server issue, so it shouldn't last more than a few minutes. Yeah, that was my guess. I use the wiki quite a bit for, researching videos and thumbnails and all kinds of stuff, and I've actually never had this happen. So I assumed it was just some kind of server hiccup. Oh, you fixed it. There you go. It was that easy. Let me refresh a couple more of these. Yep. You fixed it, Ghost. Thanks, man. Next up, we have... The next hero is very hit or miss for a lot of people. It is Arfus, which, love him or hate him, he is a Death Knight hero, essentially, and his hero power is 1 mana, and you spend up to 3 corpses, and for each you reduce the cost of a card in your hand by 1. And the passive basically says that after you play a certain ruined card, you excavate, and then it swaps every time. So, you play a Frost Rune card and you excavate, and then it moves to Blood, Unholy, and refreshes. So you're playing the different runes, you're excavating, and then you're spending corpses to reduce the cost of cards in your hand. The biggest problem with this deck, at least in terms of balance, is that it's very easy to cycle through these. You're getting legendary treasures very, very quickly. Most of the legendary treasures are great, to my knowledge. I don't know if this was fixed or not, but I know at least at first, Arfus couldn't get the Shaman or Paladin legendary treasure, which is a good thing because the Shaman one sucks. So it was just making the pool of legendary treasures better, right? Does anyone know if it's not fixed yet? Okay. So if they fix that with Arfus, that'll definitely take it down a peg with balance, I think. Because Arfus, you're not going to play the Shaman Legendary because it screws over your whole deck, right? The whole point is playing Death Knight cards to excavate. If you play the Shaman Legendary, all your ruined cards are gone. Yeah, that will hurt the deck because it's basically a wasted card in your hand and it's a wasted, excavate. Hopefully they fix that this week or whenever they do the other balance changes. I'm very torn on this one though. Because on one hand, I love Excavate. I think Excavate is one of the best keywords and mechanics they've added in a long time. But on the other hand, I feel like this deck just does nothing new. And yeah, you could say the same about Refaam. But like I said, it has the whole power trip aspect, right? That most people can't just build a full deck of legendaries and play the game. But everyone can just play an excavate deck, right? Like this deck isn't really doing anything different or unique. I feel like it's a C in that regard. Like Alakir has a bit of a unique effect. Refaam has a very unique deck. Arfus is just a rainbow Death Knight deck with excavate, pretty much. The next one is Brann's Bronzebeard, and his hero power is 1 mana and your next battle cry triggers twice. And his passive is after you play a battle cry minion, transform it into a random beast of the same cost. I'm a little torn on Brann. I think the hero power is fun. Obviously, doubling battle cries is fun, but I thought this passive was a little annoying. It was very like, I don't know, just too much RNG for my liking. Especially sometimes you'd have a minion that like you would want to play that minion and keep that minion, right? But you play it and it transforms. But the hero power is cool. I feel like it's a B. I feel like the hero power bumps it up a tier. Just because doubling battle cries is fun. Like, don't get me wrong, right? Brann, like the neutral Brann, warrior Brann, doubling battle cries is just fun. But I'm not big on this passive. I understand it could probably be good. There's a lot of cards in the deck where the bodies kind of suck. So generally you're getting an upgrade here, but it's random. So I think it's a B. I think the passive isn't that fun personally just because it's so high rolly, but I think the hero power bumps it up a notch, and doubling battle cries is always fun. Next up we have Cthulhu. So I will try my hardest not to be biased here because Cthulhu is possibly my favorite card in the entire game. And this was probably the one I was most looking forward to playing. Cthulhu's got a bunch of buffs. He's now at 80 health, apparently, which is insane. But basically, his hero power is 1 mana, and you discover a Cthulhu card. And the passive is Cthulhu starts in your hand. And after 2 friendly minions die, you give your Cthulhu +1/+1. So it essentially has infused 2, give your Cthulhu +1/+1. Cthulhu starts in your hand. The deck is built as a token deck, essentially. So you're spawning a bunch of little shitters and infusing your Cthulhu, and then using the hero power to further discover Cthulhu cards, which some of them are very, very good. You know, you have the Blade of Cthulhu to destroy a minion and buff up your Cthulhu. You have Warrior one, which gives you armor, the Priest one, which gives you health, plus the 80 health, as I mentioned now. It might not be the best deck, which is funny because in my experience, half the decks I ran into were Cthulhu. If I was going totally off of like how I feel like Cthulhu is S tier. Because this could be the worst deck in Twist. I feel like I would want it S tier simply because I like Cthulhu so much. But I think I'll settle for A tier. And I think my reasoning for that is this basically feels like you're playing like a raid boss. You know, you have 80 health. You're, buffing up your Cthulhu through the course of the game, and then eventually, hopefully, dropping this big ass Cthulhu and just winning the game. Like, it really feels like you're playing like a raid boss. So I think in that aspect, that's very unique. Next up, we have Dr. Boom. The hero power is 2 mana and summons a 1/1 Boombot. And the passive is after a friendly mech dies, shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. And, I've talked about it in the past, but I love bomb decks. I love Bomb Warrior, which I'm a hypocrite because I talk shit about plagues all the time, and Bomb Warrior is very, very similar. But I don't know. It's the bombs are, like, no pun intended, the bombs are just more explosive, right? It's 5 damage versus 2, and I just think Warrior's a more interesting class. I don't know. In terms of being, like, unique and fun, I feel like it's kind of similar to Arfus, right? Arfus is pretty much just a rainbow Death Knight deck with Excavate. Dr. Boom is pretty much just a Bomb Warrior. I think the hero power is super boring. Yeah, it's cool getting to shuffle a bunch of bombs into your deck, but that's all the deck's really doing. Plus, I don't want to influence things by balance too much here, but some of these heroes have so much health now that the bombs are like negligible. No reason for Dr. Boom's hero power to be 2 mana, 1 mana fits perfectly. I agree. When I was my last stream, when I was playing Twist and going through some of these decks, there's a huge power differential in some of these hero powers. You know, some of these hero powers are 1 mana and very, very strong. And then there's others that are 2 mana and could easily be 1. And this is a perfect example. This one could and should be 1 mana, 100%. Because basically so far my idea is A's are like very unique decks or something you can't play yourself in normal Hearthstone typically. The B's have a bit of uniqueness and the C's are kind of just reskinned standard decks. That's my logic so far. I think Dr. Boom is a C because like I said, it's basically just Bomb Warrior, which I like, but if you're going into this mode to play all these different and unique decks, I think Dr. Boom doesn't like fit that, right? Next up, we have Forest Warden Omu. The hero power is a 1 mana, get a 2/2 treant, and the passive is after you summon a treant, adapt it randomly. I'll take some input here because I don't have this card, but just based on the deck and the hero power, I feel like this is a C. Kind of similar logic to the other ones here. I feel like this is just Treant Druid. Yeah, see, it's Highlander. Like, why are all these decks Highlander? That's the problem too, right? Especially, oh, they're just not consistent. Oh, it's got prep. Oh, so it's not just Druid cards. It's mostly Druid cards. Malfunction's so random. Like, who designed these decks? I feel like all of these decks have 5 random-ass cards in them. Why is this in there, too? Like, yeah, it fits with, like, the token buffing part, but they're not treants. Same with this. These aren't treants. Anyways, looking at the deck, I stick by C. It's pretty much just Treant Druid, which fits in the theme of the C's here. Next up, we have Guff Runetotem. The hero power is 1 mana, gain 1 attack this turn, and it's usable twice. And the passive is after your hero gains attack, they also gain that much armor. It's not super unique, but I feel like it fits in the B. It fits in the B category of it's not just like a default Hearthstone deck. It's not super unique, but it has a little bit of a unique aspect to it. More so the passive. You know, it's kind of like an anti-Odin, right? Instead of gaining attack on armor, you gain armor on attack. So next up, move over to Illidan Stormrage. Stormrage. The hero power is 1 mana to gain 1 attack and lifesteal this turn. The passive is after a friendly character attacks, reduce the cost of a fell spell in your hand by 1. I think it's a B. I don't think I played this deck, but I played against it a couple times, and it's pretty cool. It's basically, it makes a bunch of like rush guys and tokens to get this discount effect, and then it's playing big fell spells. So it's cool. It's basically like a fell demon hunter with a bit of a twist. Again, no pun intended. This is kind of like an armor druid with a twist. This is like a fell demon hunter with a twist. This is elemental shaman with a twist. This is kind of like a beast hunter, I guess, with a twist. I think the hero power isn't that interesting. It's literally just Demon Hunter with lifesteal, but this is really cool. And the deck supports it too. Like I said, a lot of the cards in this deck, you know, summon they either summon tokens or they have rush minions. So you're really trying to maximize the discount. So next up, we have Kael'Thas I can't talk today. We have Kael'Thas Sunstrider. Well, sorry, yeah, the hero power is a passive where it says at the start of your turn, get a playable spell and you discard it at the end of your turn. And the passive is cards that didn't start in your deck cost 1 less. So this is pretty much like a Fiesta Mage deck where cards you generate are cheaper and every turn you're also generating a card you can play. So I feel like by that logic, it's a B. You know, it's essentially Rainbow Mage with discounts and extra generation. I think if Kael'Thas didn't have this hero power, it would be a C though. Because with this hero power, it's essentially just Rainbow Spell Mage with a discount. But I think that the hero power teeters it up to B. It's like enough of a difference, enough of a twist, you know, to take it up a tier, I think. It's almost a C, but I think the hero power just brings it into B, just barely. And then next up, we have King Krush. The the hero power is 6 mana to give your hero 8 attack this turn. And the passive is after you cast a spell, reduce the cost of a beast in your hand by that spell's cost. So I will say right off the bat, I didn't play this deck at all. So I'm going to defer to you guys for this. How do you think you would rate this? I can already tell you right off the bat, just by reading this, I don't think it's a C. Because the C's are pretty much just like standard normal Hearthstone decks. You know, Rainbow Death Knight, Bomb Warrior, Treant, Druid, D for Dinosaur. From my understanding, here, let's look at the deck. Basically, the deck, I'm guessing the deck is full of little spells and then big minions to discount. Yeah. So early game, you're playing removal, cycle spells, and then discounting your big boys to play. I just think this hero power, man, is so bad. That's 6 mana. Like, hero powers are supposed to be something you can fall back on with like leftover mana. I feel like a hero power shouldn't be designed as like a primary thing to do that turn. So in that sense, I think this is a huge fail, the hero power, but it's got the unique factor, right? I feel like in terms of being unique, oh man, this is a tough one. It's definitely not a C because it is unique. You can't deny that, right? The hero power, the passive, also like the play pattern of the deck, right? Playing spells to discount big minions. That's unique and it's different. I almost want to go A, just based on my logic and my previous choices in terms of how unique and different it is, right? The hero, just so it's clear, the hero power is shit, at least in my opinion, but it's very unique. You know, the fact that it's 6 mana alone is huge, right? It's very different. The passive is cool. The passive is unlike any kind of like deck you can play, really. I'm kind of leaning towards A. Just, again, not how good the deck is, but how unique and interesting it is. Next up, we have Leeroy Jenkins. The hero power is 0 mana and says the next minion you play this turn costs health instead of mana, and the passive is both players' cards cost 1 less. So Leeroy is one I didn't play, so you guys can kind of fill me in some more here, but from my understanding, it's just an aggro deck that's using your health as a resource to accelerate, you know, the aggro, and your aggro cards are getting discounted. So what do we got here? Oh, yeah, this tops out at 5 mana. Okay. Yeah, we got some charge here, some draw. Got some life steal to gain back, you know, the life you're spending. Got a bunch of divine shields, card draw buffs. Yeah, it definitely kind of seems like a glass cannon deck, right? Like you're basically going all in. I don't know how much this deck can recover. Like if you just go all in and get a board wipe, how easily can Leeroy redraw or recover? Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards B. It's essentially an aggro deck with a twist. The twist being that you can pay life for the next minion you play. So I don't think it's quite like I said, these 3 are pretty much just normal decks without really any kind of super unique thing to them. I think I'd bump it up to B. Just for being an aggro deck that you can, or not. The fact that this only applies to your next minion though. Like you're only utilizing it once per turn. Maybe it is C. Like it's pretty much just an aggro deck, right? But using your health for 1 minion a turn. Yeah, I'm leaning towards C the more I think about it. Yeah, I think I'll go with C. Because it's pretty much just an aggro deck that you get to play 1 minion for health each turn. If the passive was something more unique or interesting, it'd probably be a B, but I think I'm going to go with C. Next up, we have Nozdormu. The hero power is 2 mana to draw a dragon. It costs 1 less. And the passive is start with an extra mana crystal. You only have 30 seconds to take your turn. And I'll say right off the bat, we talked about this a bit earlier, but this is another example where this hero power could and should be 1 mana. Some of the hero powers that are 1 mana are so strong, I don't see why this isn't 1. So that's something I hope they tweak. I feel like by my logic, this is just a C, right? This is essentially just a dragon deck with the permanent Nozdormu effect. It's actually not even as strong as normal Nozdormu. Nozdormu is 15 seconds normally, but you have 30 seconds here. But yeah, I think Nozdormu is just a C. It's pretty much just a dragon deck and having to play your turns a little faster. And I think that, you know, in terms of balance, this could be 1 mana, 100%. Next up is N'Zoth the Corruptor. The hero power is 2 mana to summon a 1/1 copy of the last Death Rattle minion you played. And the passive is after you play a Death Rattle minion, trigger its Death Rattle. And at the very least, this is a B. I don't think it's quite an A, although it was really, like, I feel like there's so many different ways you can play this. Like, because the hero power is based on the last Death Rattle you played, you know, you have some influence and you can kind of start looping Death Rattles. I don't know if it's quite A or not, though. Because it is essentially just a Death Rattle deck, right? I think by my logic, it's a B. Because it's essentially a Death Rattle deck, but you're just triggering Death Rattles like crazy. You're repeating Death Rattles. Although it's very close to being an A. And it was, in terms of fun, it was fun. When I played N'Zoth, it was great. There's a lot of cool Death Rattles in the deck. And like I said, if you set it up to, you know, play a certain Death Rattle, then just start repeating it with the hero power, it's really fun. It has cards from every class. Does it? If it does, I think it gets bumped up to an A. Because some of these other decks, they're like 90% from one class and have a couple cards from other class. I'm not going to count that. But if it's like genuinely a good mix, we got Hunter, Priest, Druid, Hunter, Warlock, Priest, Warlock, Rogue, Mage. Okay, that's cool. Got some neutrals, Demon Hunter. Okay, that's cool. I think that bumps up to an A. This deck genuinely has a mishmash of cards from different classes, which is obviously something you can't do in normal Hearthstone. So I think that bumps up to an A. That's a good thing to point out. Next up, we have Patches the Pirate. The hero power is 3 mana to draw a pirate, and the cost reduces by 1 after you play a pirate. And the passive is after you summon a pirate, it deals 1 damage to a random enemy. So I think by my logic, it's B. It's basically a pirate deck with a twist, right? I don't think it's crazy or unique enough to be an A, unless someone wants to argue for it. Because I will say I don't own Patches, so I haven't played this deck. But I think based on face value, it seems like a B based on my previous entries. Pirate deck with a twist, I concur. Yeah, I think it's a B. The pirate deck is another one of my favorites, but I gotta agree it's not that special. All right, so it seems like we're all on the same page. Patches is a C, or sorry, a B. Next up is Sir Finley Mrrgglton. The hero power is 1 mana to draw a Murloc, and the passive is your Murlocs have Rush. Is this a C or a B? Actually, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the deck. The deck will decide. If it's just like Shaman cards, it's a C. If it has a mix of cards, it's a B. That's what's going to boil down to, I think. Oh, we got some Paladin, Priest, Shaman, Priest, Paladin. Whoa, Warlock? All right. I think that bumps it up to a B. Because it's basically just a it's basically just a Murloc deck, but the fact that it's bringing cards from other classes together so much, I think that bumps it up to a B. I don't think the hero power and passive are unique enough to bring it up to an A, because N'Zoth is the same thing, right? N'Zoth is bringing a bunch of different cards from different classes together, but I think the fact that the hero power and passive are so cool and unique bumps it up to A. But the hero power and passive here is just drawing a Murloc and giving them Rush. Not that special or unique. I think it's just a B. Next up is the Lich King. The hero power is 2 mana to summon a 1/1 zombie with Reborn and Charge, and it dies at the end of turn. So it's essentially the Death Knight hero power, but with Reborn. And then the passive is after you spend a corpse, summon a risen skeleton with stats equal to the corpse's spent. Kind of leaning towards C. It's basically just a Death Knight deck. The hero power is basically just a normal hero power with Reborn, and you get a little bonus for summoning corpses. It's just Rainbow Death Knight, kind of lame. Yeah. Like, I don't think there's any... So, the hero power is not unique. The hero power is literally just Death Knight hero power with Reborn tacked on, and I don't think the passive is unique enough to bump this up to B. It's just putting a body on the board when you spend corpses, right? That's not that interesting or unique. Leaning towards C. So next up, we have Xyrella, and some of you guys have been waiting for this one. The hero power is 1 mana, and it says restore 2 health, mana thirst 8, restore 4 health instead. And the passive says your max health is 60, reach it to win the game, and damaging the enemy hero heals your hero. And surprise, surprise, this is the S tier for me. I think this is so unique. And I raved about this last week during my stream, but I really hope this idea makes its way into the game with some kind of legendary. You know, I talked about it where I could see a quest using this effect. I could see some kind of legendary card. It's fair enough. Wow, that was so unexpected. You know, even if you chop off this bottom part, right? Just your max health is 60, reach it to win the game. There's never been a win condition like that in the game. I think that's such a cool idea for Priest. The hero power is neat. The fact that it has mana thirst, That's cool. And the bottom is just icing on the cake, right? Basically giving your minions and your spells lifesteal. Like there's so much going on here. Your hero power gets better as the game goes on. Your minions and spells have lifesteal. And yeah, your goal is to just build up health and win through that. And I think I love, for anyone who's been watching me for a while now, you know that I love alternative win conditions. I love, you know, wacky ways to win the game. You know, like Wheel of Death is a recent example, right? I love stuff like that. And that's one reason, maybe I'm a little biased here, but I think out of all of these decks, this is the most unique. Like this is the most unique and different. And I'm glad you guys agree. Cartman says S tier, Emoticon S tier, Zek S tier. All right, I'm glad we're on the same page here, guys. Emoticon, there's no health-based win condition in the game, and there should be by now. Yeah, so I talked about this last week during my stream, but I really hope that they bring this into the game. I think it would, because I've talked previously how about Priest. The problem with Priest right now is it doesn't have any real win condition. Like Priests win games just by generating endless value and stealing your win conditions. You know, I think Priest would be less frustrating to play against if it had a real win condition, and something like this would be a perfect example. I think this feels like such a Priest effect. You know, like I said, I can see this as a quest. I could see this as a legendary where it just says, you know, you now have battle cry, you now have no maximum health. If you reach X health, win the game, whatever. I just feel like there's so many ways for them to implement this into the game. And I hope they do, because I love stuff like this. But I do think that people do get frustrated with win the game conditions. So in that regard, they would have to be careful. But I think it's super cool and unique effect. So last but not least, we have Zul'jin. The hero power is 2 mana to discover a secret. It costs 1 less. And the passive is after you play a secret, summon a 2/2 Berserker. Are we going to finish on a whimper here? Is this a C? It's just Secret Hunter with a little bit of an upside? Okay, here's we'll test this again. Is this only Hunter cards? If this is only Hunter cards, it's C. If it has cards from other classes, I think it goes up to B. Oh, it's looking good. Got some Hunter stuff, some Mage stuff, Paladin, Mage, Rogue. Okay, I stand corrected, guys. I'll take this up to B. Yes, it's essentially just a secret deck with a bit of an upside, but the fact that it's bringing in cards from multiple classes, I think that brings it up a tier. It's definitely a little bit unique. So, in summary, Xyrella S tier. I think Xyrella is the most unique deck and hero by far. You know, we've never had a win condition like this in the game. I hope it translates over to normal Hearthstone at some point, and it's just super fun and unique. The A's are, again, very unique decks that you can't play in normal Hearthstone. So, yes, some people have full legendary decks like Refaam, but I would argue most people don't. You know, most people can't play a full legendary deck. So in that sense, Refaam is like that power trip. Like it's giving you all kinds of fun toys to play with. Cthulhu is basically a raid boss. You know, it has 80 health. You are basically just slowly getting stronger and stronger until you're dropping your Cthulhu and hopefully winning the game. King Krush, the hero power is unique. You know, it's 6 mana, which is very different. The passive and the play pattern is very unique, playing spells to discount beasts and, you know, play big beasts. So in that sense, it's very unique, and there's not really an equivalent deck in normal Hearthstone. N'Zoth has death rattles and stuff from all different kinds of classes, and the hero power and the passive has so much synergy. You know, just being able to repeat and trigger death rattles multiple times is super fun. The Bs are basically normal Hearthstone decks with a bit of a twist. No pun intended. Alakir is an elemental shaman deck, and the passive, you know, gets you a cool effect every time you play a legendary. Brann is like a beast hunter deck, but with a semi-permanent Brann effect where you can double battle cries, and it also has the passive for random beasts. Guff is like an armor druid, but the passive is like an anti-Odin. So instead of gaining attack on armor, you're gaining armor on attack. Illidan is a fell demon hunter with the mana cheating built in. Like I said, it basically normal decks with a bit of a twist. Kael'Thas is like a rainbow fiesta mage with a bit more card generation and just letting you do more stupid shit. Patches is a pirate deck, which, if I remember right, it also has cards from multiple classes, and the hero power and passive aren't that unique or interesting, but the fact that it has cards from multiple classes kind of tipped it over the edge. Sir Finley is also the same, where the hero power and the passive are actually very boring. They're not super unique or interesting, but it's bringing cards together from multiple classes, which you can't normally do in Hearthstone. So in that sense, it is a little bit unique. And same with Zul'jin. Zul'jin is essentially just a secret deck, but it's pulling cards together from different classes. So these last three are kind of the same, where they're not that. The hero powers and the passives aren't that unique or interesting, but the fact that they're pulling in cards from multiple different classes kind of outweighs that and bumps them up a bit. And then finally, we have the C's, which the C's are essentially just normal Hearthstone decks. Arfus is just a Rainbow Death Knight with Excavate. Dr. Boom is a Bomb Warrior deck. Omu is a Treant Druid deck. Leeroy is just an aggro deck with a little bit of mana cheat. Nozdormu is just a shitty dragon deck with permanent Nozdormu, and Lich King is just a corpse Death Knight deck with a free body every so often. Yeah, I think if you're looking to jump into Twist to play decks that are mechanically unique and interesting, the A's and S's are where you want to start. I think the C's can pretty much be avoided if that's what you want to do, and the B's are in the middle. So also too, for anyone who wasn't aware, from my understanding, this twist is going to continue next month, but what they're doing is they're adding more heroes. I think they're adding like 8 or 9 new heroes. So what I'll do is next month, I will do another one of these tier lists where I will then add the new heroes they add. So we'll build on this tier list next month. Emoticon, S's and A's you play because they're fun, B's you play if they're good, and C's you play if you're personally a fan of that style of deck. That's actually a really good way to put it. That's a good summary there for sure.